Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our morning coffee time. I'm Ajahn Sudanto, and I see lots of returning friends. Some people still just arriving. So just getting the stream set up. I kind of try to keep one eye on people logging in to make sure everything's going okay. And it's always helpful for at least one of you to let me know that you can see me clearly and hear me clearly before we get too far into this. I'm monitoring as much as I can, but I never know exactly what comes out the other end. And for those who joined us for the evening meditation last night, my apologies. The computer switched the audio source to the distant webcam. So we'll do better tonight. And some people are time shifting some of the offerings, which is one of the silver linings or one of the benefits of doing the retreat this way. Can fit into people's lives in a variety of ways. Some people don't have sufficient bandwidth to stream it smoothly in real time. So generally the offerings are up directly after the event happens for replay. And I think that is for everything. And then if there's an audio component that's to be posted to Ajahn Sona's podcast stream, that's usually up right away. And for the tea times, I'm getting those up to Birkin as soon as I finish, so they can get those into the feed as well. So we're doing our best to make this available for as many people as might be interested in it. And it's been wonderful to see how many people are interested in it and how many people are participating every day. Some days 250 people joining us in our meditation hall, which really doesn't fit more than 10 comfortably, is quite a nice thing to see. And even bigger numbers showing up for the tea times and the talks that Ajahns giving in the evening. So, and oftentimes the numbers are getting close to 1,000 people within 24 hours. So it's nice to see that this can be shared so widely and that people are benefiting from it. So let's see here. Your icons are getting better and better. Like the one that caught my eye today was Thomas in Portland, who put a trillium on there for me. And we have some trilliums growing here in the monastery along the creek. And it's usually one of the earliest forest flowers that comes out, a sure sign that spring is here, or spring has arrived. And I considered making our logo for the monastery a trillium because I love them, and Buddhists like things to come in threes, and generally there are 3 leaves on a trillium, right? 3 petals. And I love these forest flowers. They come out for a brief period of time when the conditions are ripe, and they tend not to be as showy as domesticated flowers. They're humble, but they're beautiful little splash of white or color or light in an otherwise green, brown, gray, neutral, and in the evergreen forests of the Pacific Northwest, sometimes quite dark. So, and some of those thoughts played into my inspiration for the logo that we eventually created for the Hermitage, which is a Pacific dogwood. And it's out about now. And we have a few of those growing here in the monastery and more along Jewett Creek, which runs right through the monastery. And it, again, is this delicate white flower that blooms for just a short time in the springtime and illuminates the forest. As the Buddha talked about, the sincere practitioner or the good monk, when practicing correctly, he illuminates the forest. So that's some of the inspiration behind choosing that. It's something of the Pacific Northwest, where we're located geographically, the Pacific dogwood. It's wild and natural and a splash of delicate white light in what is oftentimes a dark forest. So I find it inspiring. Ajahns talk last night, I think, was very, very nice. His delivery was quite lyrical and easeful and very beautiful to listen to. And he spent a good deal of time on the contemplation of the four elements. I think he gave it a very nice treatment, helping, this is a system, as he mentioned, that of contemplation that you find in many ancient cultures. And to modern people, it can be a little interesting way to classify the world, to talk about, four elements. And, we get them on some level, but, Ajahn made the very important point, I think, this is objectively something that you have experience of, like subjectively, your experience of the world. You don't really experience uranium-235 or helium. Or even your relationship to oxygen is pretty theoretical. You breathe the stuff in various concentrations, but in some sense, like, you don't directly know it with your mind. And the essence of those elements, solidity, earth, movement or vibration, as Ajahn said, for wind, heat. And I always contemplate, like, absolute zero is a measure of heat. So there's still some heat as long as you're not at absolute zero. It could be very cold, but there still is some heat there. Like everything, we tend to relate it to sort of our own sense of what feels warm or cold, comfortable. And for those that didn't pick up on this little facet in his Dhamma talk, there was a beautiful little suggestion of a meditation embedded in there when he was talking about heat in particular, and how our bodies are transparent. If you focus on the element of heat, is really something that just passes through us. And of course, it has a relationship to mass. The body holds on to heat and radiates heat, but there's this amazing dynamic with the whole rest of the universe and the world. And the image Ajahn evoked when he was talking about this is, if you're near a boulder, say out on a hike or something, and it's a warm day and you're sitting next to the shady side of a massive, cool boulder, you feel cold. And it's all because that boulder is radiating out cold energy different than your body temperature. And in some sense, you're heating that boulder up. There's this movement of the heat element or the fire element back and forth, and it's not something you control, really. It's not something subject to your will. And if you reflect deeply, it's not me, it's not mine, it's not myself. It's not your body heat. It's just fire element. And part of the way we contemplate these elements, and the reason we contemplate them, is to get to that realization of the natural and the transcendent, to shake off this sticky, ever persistent need to identify with stolen elements of nature. And one of my early teachers, Ajahn Buddhadasa, talked about the cultivation of wisdom, and a particular point when one realizes that one has appropriated what truly doesn't belong to oneself. And he talks about giving it back. You realize that you've stolen this body, you've stolen the things, misappropriated the things that do not belong to you. And then you relinquish them through a deeper sort of understanding of the truth of anatta. One other thing of note with Ajahns' reflection on the four elements last night, you'll notice he tried to offer a little bit of grounding or context to understand how they might be held in the ancient world, the utility of them, some of the essence of the four elements. But what he didn't do was give you a technical or meticulous way to put them into practice. And something that comes up as practitioners, and for me, even in encouraging and counseling people in their practice, is we kind of hunger for ready-made practices. This comes up a lot in the questions that are coming out of the retreat, both the tea time questions and questions that come up here in the morning, and a few that sneak into the inboxes. We crave more, and I totally understand that. I remember the early years of my practice, wanting more specificity, and some of it is to counteract the arising of doubt and uncertainty about our own practice, our own ability to practice. Some of it is, a laziness of mind, even a kind of unwillingness to trust in oneself and engage creatively in putting the practice into being. And if you read the Sutta Pitaka closely, there isn't really a lot of specificity about exactly how you should practice. Features of practices, the reasons we practice, the signs that one will see if practice is developing in the right way are all described there. The fruits of the practice are described there. But for many of the meditations, there's not a great deal of specificity, and there does seem to be, even coming from the Buddha, this kind of encouragement for us to creatively engage with developing our meditative life. And I think this is very much true of some of the more reflective elements of meditation, but it could be said of all of them, really. And something I've looked at time and time again is expositions on the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutta on the mindfulness of breathing. And this is, to my knowledge and memory, probably the most complete and detailed meditation that we find in the suttas of the Pali Canon. And even there, experts don't agree on how to interpret some of the steps. Some people feel very confident that they have the right answer and they totally understand it. And good for them. My sense is you find what works and you reflect on the deeper aims of the practice, the values, the things that you should be seeing as the mind kind of comes together. And in practice, Dhamma doesn't always match the theory or the conceptualization, either the one that we maybe initially formulate and adjust over time, or something received from teachers. So if you want to follow Ajahns' encouragement and how to develop some contemplation and meditation on the four elements, it is useful to seek out teachings. Ajahn Chah talked frequently about the four elements, and you'll find that in some of the English translations that are available. Other teachers in our tradition also have talked about them. There are quite a few suttas that one can look to. So online search is your friend, and you can look some of those up and investigate them. But if one understands why it is we practice, to put forth right effort, the kinds of qualities of mind we're trying to resolve, discourage, withdraw nutriment for, and the ones that we're trying to encourage, develop, and feed, you should feel fully licensed to creatively engage with these as reflections and as meditations. And it need not be complicated. Practice can be very simple. Many of the forest ajahns had devoted themselves nearly exclusively to the cultivation of Bhutto, a simple 2-syllable mantra. Very simple, very direct. But if you look at their teachings or even talk to them about the practice, they were not merely just reciting Bhutto, Bhutto, Bhutto with perfect focus. And that is like a chief strategy for how to develop mindfulness and samadhi and overcome the hindrances. But there's a kind of creative way that they're adapting that practice. Like Ajahn Chah talks about this. And he himself sort of practiced in that way and taught in that way, encouraged his students to explore practicing this 2-syllable mantra, Bhutto, sometimes verbally, sometimes coupled with the breath, but also sometimes even just reflecting on the deeper meaning of it. Bhutto means to be awake, or the awakened one, or the puru, he would say, the knower, the one who's awake. He's not the one who's asleep or who doesn't know. He's the one who knows and is awake. So there's just 3 slight dimensions to what, in essence, is a very sort of simple practice. And in taking up something like the contemplation of the elements, that image that Ajahn evoked when he was talking about how in the realm of the fire element, we are transparent. Like my mind immediately was attracted to the notion of how that could be a beautiful meditation on fostering anatta sanya, the perception of selflessness. Because, of course, part of the way that we conceive of ourself is this conscious habit that we have of mapping the body in space and making this division between me and mine, self and the world. And part of these classification systems, like the 4 elements or the 32 parts of the body, they have the utility to pierce that, to dissolve that, so that one can reconnect with this kind of perception of not self. And the feelings that then evokes and engenders in one, the serenity, the freedom, the ease. So So just a few reflections about Ajahns talk and how it is that I think we need to creatively engage in our practice uh, to really get much out of the the teachings of the Buddha. I think one needs to put forth a lot of effort, and you need to apply yourself in body and mind. Being present isn't merely enough. You really need to engage. You can't just show up. The benefits will be limited if all you're doing is showing up or coloring by the numbers or trying to follow simple instructions. I don't say there aren't benefits. There are. But to get to the deeper benefits, one has to do more than show up. And to be truly present, if we kind of think of the other dimensions of that word, present, in the present moment, I think it's not merely an arousal of attention. I think there's many other faculties of mind, including a curiosity about the truth and a wisdom that sort of informs that. And the Buddha recounts how he continued to learn about the Dhamma in detail as he lived his life, even though he was free from suffering after his awakening experience. By teaching Dhamma, by meditating, by contemplating Dhamma, he further understood Dhamma and was interested in that. There's evidence for this in some of the passages and the stories that we find in the Sutta Pitaka. So he was still, I would say, creatively engaged with his experience of consciousness for the rest of his life. So, okay, well, I'm going to turn attention in the final 10 minutes we have here to the comments and questions. And if anyone just has reflections on the talk last night or anything else that's in the domain of our retreat. I see a question from Gamini. Is it Satipatthana? I think, Gamini, you're looking for the spelling there, and I'm not very reliable in my Pali spelling abilities, but I don't think there is a H in Sati. I think it's Satipatthana. Satipatthana. And there might be two N's in there. There might be one T and two N's. I'd have to look it up. But it's such a common term. I think you could Google it. And let's see, we have a chat room here. So Dantika up at Birkin is offered Satipatthana. Satipatthana. So that's a slightly Romanized version of it too. I think there is some diacriticals in there, but that's the essence of it. Joseph San, Ajahns' talk last evening was amazing. He spoke to my heart. What is it that spoke to your heart in particular, Joseph? I'd be interested to know. Sarima, I tried reflecting on one external part of my body, the skin like spandex. Funny. Still along with depth as well. Thanks, Ajahn, for these thoughts. Yeah, skin is a good one to contemplate. Much of our concept and attachment to the body is bound up in that. I'm not sure if a Sister Mon or Ajahn Sona came up with this, but there was a period of time I was up at Birkin, and whoever came up with it, they talked about us being bags of seawater. And I remember one time sitting in the monk's room chatting with Ajahn Sona, and Sister Mon, I think, was becoming exasperated by the content of our conversation or something, and said, "You guys, you're just caffeine-infused bags of seawater sitting there chatting back and forth." Um, and that's an interesting way to think about the body. Bag of seawater. So let's see, we have a few things coming up here. Jeannie, I appreciate Ajahn Sona and your reflections on the elements and the open-ended encouragement to practice creatively and simply. Good. And then the cautionary tale. I think the creativity can get out of hand. It can, but if one has got good teachers and friends and is well anchored in the suttas, I think one need not worry too much, especially if your framework for the practice is something that you reflect on again and again. So roadkill is handy. So corpse contemplation, I think we're talking about here, but it could be body contemplation externally. A few more. My wife said to me, "Good morning, beautiful dead things." Ajahns' previous night talk. I love the relationship to nature. Yeah, I liked Ajahns' comment the previous night's talk. You're in love with the dead things. Talking about the external manifestations of the body. Good morning, Kevin. I love the encouragement to creatively engage with our practice. It reminds me of Ajahn Panyavado's reflection that the teaching or the suttas are a mere skeleton, and how we practice is the flesh. Good morning, Andrew. I enjoy the reflection that we're attracted to the dead, the skin, the nails, etc., but they were repulsed by what is actually alive. Yeah, I like that part as well. It's a very good reflection. I am 79 going on 80, so my skin is really like spandex. My grandfather lived to the ripe old age of 100. And in the last 5 years of his life, I made it more of a priority to go and visit and spend time with him. And he was a lover of the outdoors, a boater, a skier, and fairly active person. And by the time he entered his 90s, his skin was just like crepe paper. And whenever I'd be with him, it was something that my attention would come to again and again. I mean, you could just see how thin and translucent his skin was. And he had a few different ailments, but he was in very good health, almost up until the time he died. But one of the big challenges for him was his skin. Just one little bump or misstep, dressing, or moving through the house could tear that fragile skin, and then it would be liable to some pretty serious infections. And it took sometimes 6 months for some affected part of his arm or leg or something to heal. And it was just amazing to see that. When you're so young, it seems like this amazing, pliable, rubbery sort of thing that just gets damaged and heals. I didn't really worry about it too much when I was young. I was a bit of a reckless klutz and never broke a bone, never spent a night in the hospital, but lots of cuts and scrapes and accidents. And I just it never even dawned on me that it wouldn't just bounce right back or heal or something, let alone you'd have the kind of problems that my grandfather was having in an old age. Okay, well, it is 8:30, and since we're doing this every morning, I should try not to be shy to wrap things up. It's nice to see everybody sort of tapping in day after day. We've got 100 people in here, all good friends. So please enjoy your day. I hope the sun's shining there like it is here, and we have many hours to use our life energies to creatively sort of engage with these teachings and practice. And, before you know it, this opportunity will pass. So don't be negligent. We have these gatherings, we have our meditation schedule and times, we have Ajahn and the stewards at Birkin and the monks here putting a lot of effort in to sort of offer 10 days of pujas and reflections and Dhamma teachings. So please put it to good use for your long-lasting benefit and happiness. So have a good day, and we'll see you all on the streams for the rest of the day, and again here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So be well.